Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Trust-Driven Growth Amid Market Uncertainty. In this session, we will hear from FMT Solutions CEO Nick Schilling and CMO Carrie Rosso. In today's environment of heightened market volatility and persistent uncertainty, financial advisors face growing challenges in attracting and retaining clients. When investors feel anxious and hesitant to commit, traditional persuasion-based marketing becomes less effective. This program explores how an education-first approach helps advisors establish credibility, deepen trust, and create meaningful engagement with prospective clients. Participants will learn a proven framework for driving sustainable growth by focusing on audience clarity, trust-building educational events, and conversion optimization. FMT Solutions will share the best practices drawn from 25 years of supporting advisors nationwide through educational marketing strategies, proprietary targeting technology, and scalable event-based client acquisition models. The Investments in Wealth Institute has accepted this webinar for 1 hour of CE credit toward the CIMA, CPWA, CIMC, and RMA certifications. It has also been approved for 1 CFP CE credit. Should you have a question, please click the Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen, and we will do our best to answer it. And we'll also be loading a couple guide documents in the chat that you'll have access to download. And now I'm going to kick it off to Nick Schilling.
Thank you very much, Patrick. And thank you, everybody, for taking the time out of your day to join us. We know how important every hour you have is, and we're really excited about the topic that we get to talk about today. And not only will we talk about it in where we think opportunities are to really help and support your firm, make a massive impact into your community, but also the tactics that underlie it and why those work and how it really helps continue the growth and opportunity that you have within your firm. So as Patrick said, we've been around for 25 years. And as I kind of click forward into this, and really what the reason we have this as kind of an intro slide is one of the things that we always do with the advisors that we work with is share the best practices that our advisors that are having the most growth and the most success, what they're doing, why they're doing it, and how they're doing it. That's really what we want to condense down today in about 50 minutes to an hour. And we really look forward to your questions afterwards to understand how that can apply to your firm and your unique situation. So the 25 years of experience really gives us a great vantage point to dig into what's worked, what's working, and what will work to help support your firm and have it really be a turnkey opportunity for us. What we want to talk about today in what we're doing, and we're not going to bury the lead at all in this, is we are an event-based client acquisition firm, and that's what we want to talk about. We want to talk about how we can utilize that as an engine of distinction and differentiation within your unique marketplace to really drive growth, but also make a massive impact in your community and have you thought of as the financial advisor of choice. And we'll dig in today really specifically into 3 current opportunities that we think events are going to have a massive impact in. Then I'm going to toss it over to our marketing expert and my partner over here, Carrie Rosso, to dig into what shapes events and really makes that happen for your firms and how we support it. So as we look forward, as I said before, we think right now there are 3 massive opportunities that are happening in our marketplace that events can be a great opportunity to capture and help grow your firm and make an impact. We'll walk through all 3 of them right now and then individually as we go forward. The first one is kind of the current unrest in the markets, the perception of the economy, the labor markets that are there. People are scared. The last 3 or 4 days in the markets kind of epitomizes what that is. Over the last 12 months, markets are up. People are still concerned. And we'll dig into that very specifically of what's causing that unrest and how to harness that and really help those clients out there that you want to in your local marketplace. Second is AI, the topic du jour. How is it going to impact your firm from our view? And then how can you use the type of marketing, targeting, and messaging to differentiate yourself no matter what AI is going to do? And our advisors are doing that right now. And last but not least, this great wealth transition. So over the next couple decades, depending on who you listen to, 80 to 120 trillion dollars of wealth in motion. How do you get in front of that, capture what you can, and really harness that as an opportunity that's drivable as a strategy and tactics that follow for your firm? We'll get into each one of these things very specifically. So starting, the last few days and really the last 12 months have shown this dissection, this dichotomy between what clients are seeing in their 401k or in their investment platforms and what they're feeling. Right now, if you look at TTM over the last 12 months, they're probably up on average of 15%, anywhere between 10 to 20%, depending on what their asset allocation is and is their structure. But that's not what they're feeling. What they're feeling is uncertainty. What they're feeling is unrest. What they're searching for is calm. How do I understand what's affecting the market right now? Where do I go to find the answers that I need to understand what decisions I need to make for me and my family? And what we're seeing is where they're searching is very specific. Here is just a stat of if the market's up 15%, consumer sentiment at the beginning of this year is down 25%. That is a massive dislocation of what's happening in their investments, but what they're feeling, seeing, and trying to understand of what's going on. They are so worried that the market could follow the sentiment down and what impact that could have to their investment plan, their retirement plan, and their goals, needs, and objectives as they go forward. What they're trying to do is understand what's happening in their local marketplace, the world economy, and what's going to cause something to either stabilize or course correct. And what we're seeing right now is this unrest, uneasiness, this chaos is not just theory. We're not just putting stats up. In the 25 years that we've been doing this, what we've seen is January, February of 2026 versus January and February of 2025. The attendance at our events is up 20+%. The quantity of the households that are searching for answers very proactively, that are attending event-based marketing and communication and educational seminars is up 20+%. We hardly ever see jumps of this magnitude in this short of time. And it's because of a lack of understanding, clarity, and transparency. They don't really understand, honestly, why their portfolios are up, but why their worries are continuing and sustaining. Not only is the quantity of attendees up, but also is the quality, the net worth of each family that comes. This is, at the beginning of this year, the national average for one of our event types and structures of where we target people in that 50 to 65 age range. And here is the national average of what the archetype of that family unit looks like. Income of 300+K, net worth $1 million+, and investable assets of over 850K. Now that's the national average. That's Boston and Bismarck and Bozeman all combined in it. But if you go to the coasts, these numbers inflate, as anyone would think. This is, in our 25 years, as high as we've ever seen it, as it continues to go. And the reason that is because a millionaire, $1, $2, $3, $4, $5 million of what they have, net worth or investable assets, doesn't feel as secure as they did 10 years ago. They understand what the impact of a 20 or 25% market correction could do, depending on where they're at in that stage of life. So they want to get in front of it very proactively. They want to understand what they need to do to stabilize not only their worries, but their plan. And they're actively going outbound and searching for answers. And Carrie will touch on a little bit later why we think event-based marketing is that magnet to build that trust in. And we'll talk about that very specifically. The next opportunity that we're going to dig into is AI. And if you're reading any headlines in our industry, this is the headline. It is the needle in our industry. It's what everybody's talking about. And there's a lot of different views on it. It's going to transform in the next 18 months every white collar job that's ever existed. It's going to completely change financial advisory and put it on its head to, oh, it's just another robo advisor. It's a fad. It will go away. Nothing can replace the financial advisor. You know, when Carrie and I and our team talk about this, I think there is some really unique things with artificial intelligence that can really help bolster and make better what we do as financial advisors each and every day for your current families and your prospective ones. I have always said to our team that technology is never the thing. It just makes the thing more effective and efficient. With AI, I want to pause. AI is starting to be able to do the thing in certain aspects. And what we want to dig into is, what are those aspects that it is starting to replace the thing? Where should we be looking? How should we be maybe moving our value proposition as financial advisory firms to utilize AI and not have it be any perception of it replacing your true value? So we want to dig into today of kind of advisors versus algorithms, and there is a significant difference. You all are on this call because you're the best of the best. You're constantly learning. That is what your families and your prospective families are searching for. We think there's really three things that every great financial advisor brings to bear for their families and their community. And we'll walk through all three of those things, right? First is expertise. You all know a ton, have the backbone to be able to research and understand all of the things that your doctor, dentist, and electrician client doesn't want to. That expertise is huge for you to be able to implant that expertise to each individual family. When we shift from expertise to experience, that's what we mean. The definition of experience for us is you being able to take the expertise that you have, make it bespoke for the Schilling family and their unique circumstance that nobody else can do. And then last but not least of these three main things is empathy. We define empathy as, how do you take your experience, customize it for each and every unique family that sits across the table from you? But then empathy is, how do you then help them implement that strategy, make decisions about what's going to impact it most, and communicate those decisions to all of the benefactors and family members that are going to be affected by that. That is really becoming, especially as you swim upstream to all of you advisors that are swimming upstream to higher and higher net worth families, that empathy component, that decision-making component, the communication of that is becoming a deeper resource of knowledge and value proposition each and every day. So what's going to happen as we go forward? The one thing, and I keep using the word thing as a generic, the one thing where I think AI is actually going to have an effect on us is expertise becomes a commodity. What we really see right now is expertise. Now, this can be a massive value add to you firms, no matter what size you are. You no longer will need a team of 100 CFAs and analysts to understand what trades, what adjustments you need to make for each individual family. You will no longer need to understand, how do I create the perfect direct index with the least amount of tracking error to meet this family's goals, needs, and objectives. You can have that team of CFAs, but that is what artificial intelligence does really well. What then gets bolstered is, how do you as the advisor, the communicator of that plan, the customizer of that plan, take that expertise, no matter where it's deriving from your team, your planning department, or an AI agent that is spitting out what is best, to then customize that for each and every family you're sitting across from. Your experience of tailoring plans to their goals, needs, and objectives. And that's not just when they have or meet this threshold, we do this. It's sitting across the table and having an understanding that that family might not even be able to articulate, to put into an AI agent, but you understand it because of the experience that you've built over decades and decades of sitting across with families. That bespokeness and customization is unique only to the best of the best advisors. And as that experience becomes more paramount, as does empathy. If expertise becomes a commodity, empathy is the thing that can never be recreated by an algorithm or an AI agent. You helping them communicate and understand the decision-making process, not just at plan, but throughout the generations of that plan and the impact that it can have. Most families that are of means are meaning to pass on a lot of that means, and we'll talk about that in just a second. But what does the impact of those choices have? How does that affect their plan? How are they planning to communicate said benefactors of what's going on, and how can you help that and make that more powerful, more impactful, and not just a one-time thing, but an ongoing relationship? This is where the best of the best advisors are going to lean their value proposition, utilizing a way to showcase right now their expertise, their experience, and their empathy, leaning in towards the back too, as AI becomes a great tool for you to utilize to become more effective and efficient in everything you're doing, but using it to set you up to tee up your differentiation and distinction. So we really look at this as a positive, and our advisors that are taking advantage of the chaos in the system right now, this is the way they're talking and growing their firm. So the last topic of the three great opportunities that we have is this quote unquote great wealth transfer. Depending on what statistics you follow, this 80 to 120 trillion dollars, trillion with a T, in motion over the next 2 decades. That number is so vast, those numbers are so vast, that it's somewhat tough to conceptualize. How do you, as a firm, no matter where you're located, no matter your size of your firm, even start to create a strategy, let alone tactics, of how you're going to start to take your bite of this ever-growing apple? Just to give some perspective as to how large 100 trillion is as a number, if you were to stack pennies on top of each other, laid down flat, 100 trillion pennies would reach 95% of the way to the sun. That's 87, 88 million miles away. The number is so big, it's astronomical. We have to use different dimensions to really do it. So how do we start to take that and really break that down into an understanding where we can start to attack it as a firm, where we can help you attack it as a firm in a very meaningful and executable way? The first way to do it is start to understand, if 80 to 100 trillion plus dollars are in motion, where are they going and when? What are the layers of this, and how is this going to start to cascade down from generations? And this is from Cerulean Associates. You can see that, 6 trillion looks paltry. That's an amazing number that we're saying is a small thing, but boomers will catch a little bit of this. But then you start to get in to the generations like mine and younger. How do you start to understand where the families at that age and stage of life are doing? What are we doing to capture their attention, get them into the planning process, and then understand what we can do to help impact that? It still is a really insurmountable effort, almost Sisyphean, if you take a look at, well, how do I start to walk forward up this hill? When we break it down and you look at your backyard individually, $100 trillion or 80 to $100 trillion. When you look at the zip codes that are surrounding your area, 20,000 households of your ideal client profile, that equates to, on average, about 25 to 32 billion with the B opportunity over the next couple decades. That is a massive opportunity in each one of your backyards, but much more consumable, much more attackable with a strategy. How do you want to start to capture and have a plan to get as much of that 30-ish trillion dollars in motion over the next couple decades and really have an answer for how you're going to do it? How do you scale to that number? Now, we're talking with advisors that are uber curious and uber successful right now on this call. So I'm sure that you're working one end of this very specifically. You are doing estate planning and legacy planning with your families. You are engendering the next generation of those families to be a part of that planning conversation and connecting them in to the plan that grandma and grandpa, mom and dad, whomever it is, want them to be a part of. We know each and every one of you are doing that. The other side of that is, how do you meaningfully attack or create a funnel towards the other end of the spectrum? How do you go engender the trust of the families that will inherit that very directly? I think this is an opportunity so large and so vast that you need multiple funnels to really make the biggest impact. You need to do what you're currently doing, and you need to start to meet those families that are going to inherit this wealth transfer where they're already at. And that's why we've created, and Carrie will talk about distinctly kind of our classes and our curriculum structure, but we've created a specific class, an educational curriculum for this demographic. We call it Wealth Creation Today, but it's set to meet that family in the accumulation stage and age of life to what they're looking to understand, what they need to do, and then what's going to happen day in, day out, month, year in, year out of what they need to do to build themselves up to be the family they want, but also what happens when they inherit $1 million or $100 million, whatever it may be, that could completely change the aspect of their life. How do they do that in an organized, effective, and tax efficient way? They need to have that same understanding. As you know, there's different types of families out there. Some are more communicative and connected, others are not. So having a strategy where you're working with the family that's going to be passing it on, and then having another complementary strategy where you're working with the family that's going to be there to catch it, is what our best advisors are doing. And it really comes down to having a unique strategy and a position in your local marketplace that sets you apart as the educator for both sides of this amazing $30 trillion or $30 billion in your local marketplace, 100 trillion plus across the globe. So what are events? What do they mean, and how to start to utilize them and implement them in your practice? As we've talked about, there is an onslaught of information that every consumer and every advisor are trying to filter through. What we've seen over the last, I would say, 5 years is that as information becomes more prevalent, distinguishing what is meaningful, what information we should trust, and what information we should use to make decisions off of is the whole game. Higher and higher net worth clients are choosing events to be able to use that as a distinguishing factor of how I can understand, ask questions, and really get to know the advisor that is being that educator and that firm, and really use that as the litmus test for how we are going to choose the partner and the party that we're going to use to make our decisions going forward. This is just a repeat of the same slide we did, but it's so worth sharing twice, as that family, no matter where they're at in that higher net worth stage, is still very concerned about what's happening. And they're being very proactive in how they're searching for truth in how they're going to make decisions. And us as financial advisors, what we're trying to do each and every day is, how do we become that trusted source of truth for more and more families in our ideal profile for in your community? I'm going to pass it over to my partner, Carrie, to dig into how does that trust-based matrix work? How can you implement it into your firm, and how can we help support it? So, Carrie, take it away.
Thanks, Nick. So I'm going to dive into sort of the marketing side of things when it comes to event-based client acquisition. So as Nick said, this all centers around trust. And at its core, marketing is really about trust building and finding those tactics to do that quicker and produce the outcomes you're looking for, both faster and then with more long-term loyalty. So if you're an advisor that has maybe more ambitious growth goals than referrals can support, it's time to start looking at how to layer on additional strategies that are going to help you fill your client acquisition strategy or client acquisition funnel, and really like ranking those based on how fast they're and strongly they're going to develop trust. I've spent most of my career, which is kind of spans the same lifetime as FMT and the Financial Educators Network, trying to understand what motivates consumers to make decisions when it's related to their money, whether that's opening a bank account or choosing a financial advisor. Why do people change, switch, move? And it really comes down to emotions. It's such an emotional decision, even though money is logical, right? It is numbers, it is math. It is such an emotionally driven decision, and that is why finding those right tactics that instill the most trust, that can allow that person you're going to hand over or partner with on your financial life, allow that person to demonstrate their expertise, but more importantly, their authenticity, their empathy. They're going to work harder and faster for advisors. So one-to-many events just build trust faster than other tactics. And the more focused these events are on education, the better they are at accelerating trust building with the audience that they're directed at. Not only do they establish a higher baseline of trust when prospects enter the advisor-client relationship, but they shorten the time from initial interest, so when they're first engaging with you, to a more meaningful engagement, whether that be meeting in your office or becoming a client. That is shortened, that time frame. And educational events can really create referral level trust depending on how you execute them, because prospects get to experience you and your expertise and authenticity firsthand. So this is really kind of fundamental to why these type of tactics, especially for our advisors, are core to their marketing strategy and their client acquisition. So as Nick said, what I'm going to share with you today is really what makes a strong event, an educational event focused framework. How do I execute these as a really solid form of client acquisition for my firm? And this information will help you whether you're an advisor considering events as part of your strategy for the first time, or maybe you're one who's been executing event marketing for years and you're just looking for a way to refine what you're doing to improve your results. I hope there's going to be something here for you today. So today I'm going to focus on three key areas that have the biggest impact on ROI when it comes to events, and that establish the strongest long-term foundation for this approach, to become a core part of your firm's growth long term. Sustainable growth comes from identifying and reaching the right audience, actively building trust through every opportunity and touch point you have with them, and then always optimizing the steps that move attendees in an event-based scenario toward becoming a client faster and more holistically and more completely when they become your client. So the first piece of this framework is really what we call audience clarity. I'm going to start at the beginning, right? I'm going to start with your audience. Who are you going to offer or promote, in this case, your educational event or your event to? This is the most important decision you will make in a strategy like this one. There is a lot that goes into filling a classroom or a restaurant or a library and then teaching a great class. So you want to make sure you're starting with the absolute right people with your marketing of that event. Events are a direct response marketing campaign, meaning you're going out maybe 2 to 4 weeks in advance of the event and you're asking people to convert or register off of that marketing that you're doing in a really short time frame, right? The ask is there. You're not nurturing them for 12 months. You're saying, come to my event. Direct mail has historically and still today plays a big role in these types of campaigns. And we know that who you target can make up about 60% or 65% of your results. So the more um, so way more than the creative or the mailer that you're using, who you're targeting is actually way more instrumental in your success rate than any other piece of that campaign. So getting your offer or your message in front of the right people from the very start is key. And so I'm going to share a couple ways in how you can think about doing this. So, first, you want to identify who you want to work with, not just through dollars and age. If you're doing any sort of events today, you've probably focused on filtering lists through age or some sort of monetary attribute like income or net worth. But there's so much more data to be harnessed and accessed for this to further refine who you're targeting, to really get in front of not just the right people but the people that are more likely to act on what you're offering in that short period of time. So Nick was talking about AI, and you're hearing about it every day, and all the ways that it can be harnessed, good and bad, in my opinion. But data is actually an enormous way, a huge opportunity, one of the biggest opportunities to leverage AI, even in marketing. So once you define your ideal client profile and you segment your existing clients into this category, you now have data, right? First party data that you can use to prioritize how you find your next best client. And what's really, I think, instrumental in where AI plays a part is that marriage of the first party data that exists about your ideal client. In our case, that first party data is who registers for educational courses. We've been accumulating this data for 16, 17 years, and how we use that first party data and apply it to the hundreds of thousands of first or third party data available out in the marketplace at a cost, right? To create a more focused and sophisticated and precise targeting for promoting your events. And this is where AI really can add value to this process, to your client acquisition, into your marketing. Things that took months a few years ago, building a model, using all of this data to prioritize in a more sophisticated way who you're targeting can just be done in hours. Because of the tremendous amount of information that we used to need to ingest through humans and maybe some tools, we're now able to do that so quickly with the use of AI. So finding ways to better leverage data and partner with firms that will allow you to leverage AI to train on your ideal customer can really set your educational event strategy up for more success in the short and the long term. And this is something that should be revisited constantly, over and over, because if you are just doing it the same way and expecting different results, we all know what's going to happen. So something you can continue to revisit over and over. And the impact that all of this is going to have on your marketing efforts is pretty profound, right? So not done well, you're going to waste a lot of time, a lot of effort, and a lot of money, frankly, chasing and qualifying people that aren't right for your firm. But if you're able to figure out how to do this well, oh, and I just realized I haven't sorry about that. I haven't forwarded my slides. If you're really able to do this well, you spend less time qualifying them, right? And you're creating demand with the right audience that wants your services, not only because they're a great financial fit, but because they're at the right place in their lives to engage with you, right? So it just makes that targeting way more powerful and way more precise. So very key in any marketing strategy, but in particular, these short-term event-based marketing strategies. All right. So the second pillar that we're going to share with you today is really that one focused around trust building. So this, falls and kind of encompasses all aspects of your marketing, and attracting the right audience is really important, but it's just part of the equation. Keeping them engaged and building trust is what leads to faster conversions and then ultimately retention, longer lasting client relationships. And education works best when it's practical and relatable, walking through real life examples, just demonstrating how financial concepts apply, like making these things that are maybe not very tangible and applicable to a person's life, and providing a clear picture of what that could mean for them. What that means in your consultation process as a financial advisor. It really helps families see the value that you bring to this equation. And trust, of course, we all know isn't built overnight, but it's the result of things like transparency, authenticity, and consistency. Advisors who demonstrate these qualities create connections in these scenarios that extend well beyond the classroom, well beyond that course that they're teaching. So rather than relying on high pressure sales tactics, really focusing on creating an authentic educational environment will position you in a way that gives those prospects a chance to learn about the complexities of financial planning or retirement planning in a really friendly, non-threatening environment. And we see this working wonders for firms across the country. Embracing that role as an educator, embracing this platform as a teacher really does this well for our advisors. And within this, there are a few key areas that we've seen have the biggest impact on the client acquisition and building trust to make that happen faster through this approach. So, this in-depth interaction. So, leading with value, not sales. Creating an environment where you can have an in-depth interaction with content that really informs, that demonstrates the complexities that planning for retirement contain. Um, and providing an opportunity to show through real life examples. So not only having a platform for you to share your expertise and share your content, but making sure you choose the right location, like where they're at, really matters here. The location can reinforce your interaction with these people, or it can distract. The second thing is really screening for a vested audience. Your initial targeting is going to do a lot of this, right? You're looking for those people that not only financially qualify, but are showing the right um, intent in the market at that time. That's going to help, but there's some additional ways that we've seen work wonders for really screening the audience to ensure you're spending that time teaching a very highly motivated group of people that have a much higher intent to act off the information that they're going to receive from you. So first, we ask them to commit financially by charging for the class, just like a community college or university would do for adult education. And second, we ask them to commit with their time. Our flagship product is a long form retirement education course hosted over 2 sessions for 2 to 3 hours per session. So you're ultimately spending up to 6 hours with these people. That's a commitment on their part that really screens for intent. It increases our conversion rates dramatically. We see on average 80% of attendees meeting one-on-one with our instructors or advisors in the office. So it showcases the breadth and complexity that come along with planning, but it gives them a connection to you as the instructor and as their future advisor that leads to these high conversion rates. And I mentioned earlier, you need to embrace your role as an instructor. It's not just information, but it's how it's delivered. Model the same behavior your best teachers and professors did with you, right? Provide real life examples that not only demonstrate your expertise, but show attendees situations that they can relate to in their own lives. And then do this in a way that empowers those prospects or those attendees to make informed decisions because they're looking for a partner. They're there for a reason, and it's up to you to really capture that. And then finally, we encourage people to really create dialogue in the classes, not just instruct. Find ways to get the attendees engaged, asking questions, and then answer them. Our most successful advisors will all say the same thing. They answer the questions that they can, right? It builds trust. It pays off in the long run. It shows how these complex financial concepts are really something that needs to be handled with an expert and why partnering with them is so important. So, something to really leverage. And all of these matter, but in this environment in particular, people are searching for guidance, as Nick talked about earlier. In times like these, with the uncertainty of this current environment creates, these audiences that attend these classes are more invested than ever. And as he showed, we're seeing a spike in demand once again for our advisors' classes when things feel really uncertain. So market volatility and talks of recession, election cycles, all these things affect our classes, but we're really seeing that at a tipping point right now. And the impact of this, of really focusing on trust building and creating, like just being precise in how you're creating this environment to instill and build trust. is so key. If you do it well, it isn't about giving away your secrets, it's about demonstrating your expertise and showing your empathy for these situations. When you lead with valuable content, when you position yourself as a trusted advisor long before you ever mention a product or service, this ultimately shortens the purchase journey and it builds a foundation for deeper, more meaningful relationships that generate referrals and long-term revenue. It doesn't have to be meeting after meeting. These educational courses or educational marketing offers an opportunity for advisors to meet prospects in an environment designed for learning, not selling. And so families who attend these sessions are invested in making informed financial decisions. They're invested in acting on the information that they've received, and it really ultimately offers an immediate value to the advisors that are using this as a client acquisition funnel. And the last area I want to spend a little time on is, there's a lot of fundamental stuff that goes into setting up this strategy. Like the foundation, building a strong foundation is important, but it is something that should be continuously improving, continuously revisiting. And so I think I would call this just conversion optimization. How are you looking at your event strategy? How are you looking at how you're building trust in the classroom? How are you looking at who you're targeting to really optimize your conversion rates over time? You want your attendees to leave the class with feedback like this, and I quote, "I contacted the course instructor and he's now our financial advisor." I mean, like the most ideal scenario, right? In a lot of ways, this is an art, not a science, but your presence in the classroom is really important and makes a lot of difference when you're trying to move from class to one-on-one. So embodying that role of a professor or teacher and then improving on that over time, constantly learning and growing as an instructor. And then implementing ways that you can start to position yourself in what we call a lab session, the one-on-one session throughout your class. Streamline this process from interest that's going to occur at different points throughout the 6 hours that they're with you or 90 minutes that they're with you in a workshop and make it clear, make that path to action clear for them. And then I would say making sure that you are following up and you're improving what that follow-up looks like over time. Make it clear, make it easy, and just consistent, right? Being consistent in that follow-up, giving them more opportunities to act ongoing and long-term. Because you've invested a lot of time with them in this classroom, you've captured some brain cells. They're going to remember you. They're going to have that workbook or whatever you've left behind. So when the time is right, make it really, really easy for them to ask or to act. And then measure and refine based on that engagement data. So always be introspective in looking at the different ways that you can affect that conversion rate and people showing up in your office after the class. I think these are constantly revisited by our team and our advisors together, right? We're working and coaching our advisors, sharing best practices amongst the hundreds and hundreds of instructors out there teaching these courses every day, to help share what works and what doesn't, or how other advisors can become better at what they're doing. And then lastly, I would say just look at this. If you're doing this on a regular basis, if you're being disciplined about continuing to look at all aspects of this strategy and improving your conversion rates, look at it in the long term. This is a long-term strategy. Oftentimes that seed is planted with these prospects. And as I said, we see a lot, 80% meeting with our advisors post-class, but that doesn't mean that remaining 20% isn't going to become your client. It just means that maybe they don't have as strong of a motivation or reason to act. And so think of them as a seed that's been planted, and you'll get better at this over time. So being consistent, committing, and disciplined in your approach, I think really, to kind of bring it back to what I said in the beginning about trust and really studying this consumer and why are they going to choose a new advisor? Why are they going to change financial institutions? It's really about, this trust building that happens over time and you consistently get better at. So I'm just going to wrap it up with kind of revisiting events as a growth engine, why we believe in what we have seen over the last 25 years. This is really what helps our advisors see improved business results. It can feel very, it feels very values aligned, I think, to a lot of our instructors, but at the end of the day, it's growing their business, right? It is affecting their bottom line. They have to take fewer meetings. They're spending less time chasing prospects and qualifying them, and ultimately see during that acquisition process, they're getting more of their clients' assets up front. They're retaining them long term and ultimately generationally. And then they're increasing the referrals that they're seeing from that client base over the long run. Um, Time check. Okay, couple of tips in implementation. So again, we've done this for a long time. We work with hundreds and hundreds of advisors, thousands of campaigns. Um, every year. So what can you do today? Like I would say first and foremost, I think this is going to feel familiar to you as an advisor, like put together a goal-based annual plan. Marketing is a long-term strategy. There is no marketing that I've ever found that's going to give you instant results immediately, right? This is something that you have to be disciplined about, you have to study. So put together a plan, like look at what your goals are and revisit this, like plan annually and continue to revisit this. I mentioned this in the conversion rate section, but be very open to feedback and iterate. Constantly improve. It's never going to be perfect. Continue to strive for that perfection. And then focus on those relationships, right? It's not a transaction, it's a relationship. And then lastly, I think our most successful advisors bring their team into this. It is not just them out there instructing, but it's finding ways to bring this into your firm as a foundational strategy of your business and your business's focus so that it permeates everything you do. And then you're able to leverage other members of your team in different roles, whether that be to help bear some of the burden of instructing, whether that's a resource in the classroom for participants to engage with, whether that's follow-up or finding other ways to promote your role as an instructor in your community. Getting your entire team involved is really, really important. All right. I think Nick, you covered this a little bit at the beginning. You kind of know about who we are and why you should listen to us. So I'm going to skip to just a few other components on the FMT side that really make up what we do every day, just to answer a few questions about how we execute. One, our marketing strategies are focused around exclusive territories for our flagship product. So if you're going to teach one of those courses like Nick showcased earlier, Wealth Creation Today, to a specific demographic and a specific group of zip codes, and you're doing that on a regular basis, that is yours. You own that. That is an important construct to the flagship product, the Financial Educators Network. And it helps our advisors build over time. Secondly, we leverage I alluded to this earlier, but we leverage our first party data. We have been accumulating this data for well over a decade, probably approaching two, that help us identify those households that are most likely to engage with the class. What this really looks like from a practical standpoint is you might have a community of, 50,000 if you're looking at the pre-retiree demographic. But you don't want to spend money and time marketing to all 50,000, right? You want to start to hone that in through zip codes and maybe you're using some asset thresholds. But when you overlay that highest potential target, when you look at that first party data and what impact that can have on this audience, it really helps you focus in and get clear on who to target with your message. And then the last piece of sort of the spokes of the puzzle is really this robust curriculum that we provide based on that demographic. So it's not it spans the entire sort of financial picture or all financial concepts, but it's tailored to where they're at as it pertains to their life and really in reference to their retirement and life stage. So having the FINRA reviewed long form content that can support that takes a lot of that burden off of our advisors. And then with the marketing that we like sort of turnkey marketing that we provide, this really creates that perfect environment for trust building, right? So we've got the content, targeting the right people. We're asking for a commitment in time and money, and we're supporting that instructor through creating that educational environment to reach those high conversion rates that our advisors see. All right, so with that, And Nick, is there anything you would add to kind of how we execute our platform? Or if we can always move to question and answer.
No, Carrie, I think the only thing that I would add on top of what you did was I loved the construct that you laid out about getting the team involved. I would
Mhm.
also add in there of the coordination of our team as well, or a team like ours to have an extension of what you're going to do in the class to share and iterate on those best practices and continue to hone. So you're not on an island trying to make these decisions for yourself, but you're understanding from our vantage point what other advisors are doing to have success, and not just success in January or February of 2026, but sustained success over the last couple decades, and then maybe the things that they're tweaking right now that you can then hone and implement into your practice in an individualized and customized manner. We don't expect you to copy. We love to work with implementers. How does what we're saying affect your firm in an individual way? And that's what we try to help advisors do. So, no, I think we got some questions going, and now is probably a great time to start digging in.
Uh, Yeah, yeah. All right. So I'm gonna read through these questions and Nick's gonna help me answer them. Although I will say this first one addresses me, so thanks, John. So Carrie, you mentioned first level criteria for audience clarity, such as age, net worth, and event registration. I think the question here is this, using AI to harness that, what does that actually look like in practice? I'm happy to start that one. Nick, I can go into the details a little
Yeah,
bit more for this John. So
please.
what it like technically looks like is you take, the hundreds of thousands of registrations we get each year and you look at, who that household is. We know name, address, we can kind of identify that household, right? And then leveraging these third-party data sources that at this point, I think our model is using like 1,700 attributes. So things we know about the population, whether it's media they consume, where they shop, where they live, the cars they drive, right? These maybe not what they might not seem as, totally relatable data points, but when you can take this audience and match those 1,700 attributes to the ideal audience that you know you want, basically our converters, and start to build a persona or a profile, what is a scoring model essentially, based off of more than just age, address, income producing assets, and net worth. You can start to layer in and see trends amongst all of these other attributes. That's where you can get more precise. And like in my experience, I've tended to do this with data partners for years, and it did used to take 6 months, right? To take, the various data sources you were going to use, the attributes they have available, matching your audience, writing the algorithms. It used to take months, and now this is like what different AI platforms can help you do really quickly. I mean, at a price, right? So, and you have to have enough and good first party data to inform, I think, the model to make it really effective. But that's a little bit more about what that second level actually looks like in practice. I hope that helps. Um, So we will be sending the presentation out. We can do that, I think, Patrick, after the event. And then there's a few questions about, I think maybe I needed to get a little more clear on how this actually works, who presents the material. So I think maybe a slide ago, I showed a few workbooks. These are the attendee workbooks, but the advisor is the instructor in these scenarios. That's what we partner with our advisors on. We coach you and get you ready. We give you the materials, the presentations, and the training so that you are presenting this class and this information to the prospects in that classroom. So it's really about enabling you as an instructor and positioning you as that expert. And then for our flagship classes, they're delivered through what we call the Financial Educators Network. So this is the education focused. So Financial Educators Network, this is the education focused consumer brand through which these courses are delivered across the country. So on any given night, there's potentially, hundreds of these classes being delivered by financial advisor instructors in communities throughout the country. Let's see. All right, Nick. Even though this is marketing, I'll give you a shot at it.
No, you answer. You're the expert. Yeah.
So another question that came through is, does this approach mean we should be reallocating budget? And that this specifically, maybe it's digital advertising that you're doing or your website. Um, and I think everybody's budget is different, right? So ideally, you're activating multiple channels at different levels of the funnel. So think about things like digital advertising as maybe starting to build awareness, get your brand out there. Those are not going to be direct conversion or direct response campaigns, but they'll help build reputation. And if you're looking at allocating some or all of your budget to things like educational events or event-based marketing, um, I would say those are excellent ways to reinforce that bottom of the funnel tactic, right? Feed your role as an educator in the community, feed your events through those other channels that you're still allocating your budget to if you have the ability to do that. So we've seen our advisors that have done this for a long time see a lot of success in, mentioning their classes on the radio program that they're on a weekly basis, or leveraging their own social channels to promote their role as an educator. I think they really embrace that as part of their brand and who they want to establish themselves as in that local community.
Carrie, I think that's a really good point. Just to tag on to that a little bit, I think 100% of our advisors do other marketing activities to continue to grow their firm along with and in a complement to events that we help them do as well. So I think that's a super great question of what does that look like for each individual practice? That's something that when we talk to you and our team works with you, we try to have an understanding of what you're doing right now, where events could fit in and complement, and maybe how that could be static or build as it goes,
Mhm.
depending on what you want to do, how you want to do it, and the results that you're having from it. But the last thing that our advisor, this is not a one and done thing. This can be the center of your model because of its trust building activity and the way that it can ripple into other things, but it is definitely not it an end all be all. So we would love to work with each of you to figure out what does that look like for your firm, for your marketing budget, what your growth goals are, and then we try to get as scientific as we can with it. As Carrie said, a lot of it is art in targeting, but we try to understand what our typical ROI is for a campaign like this, how that can implement into your practice. And then those are the benchmarks we're searching for as you continue to do events like this. Are we at that benchmark above or below? And then what do we got to do to tweak together?
Awesome. So we have 2 minutes left,
Oh,
and
yeah.
we get this question every time, but I know you're all probably wondering about costs and price. It's in the chat, it always is. And what's really like tricky about that question for us, and I'll let you kind of tackle this too, Nick, is that
Yeah.
it's so customizable, right? Like it's
Yeah.
so much, it has to do with the market you're targeting, the size, who they are, how we're going to reach them, the channels we're going to execute. And I know that's like a tricky answer. You want a price, right? But it also gives a lot of flexibility. So, it's putting together a unique marketing campaign for your event in your marketplace, and that has, could be variable costs based on how you're going to execute that.
That's exactly it. It really comes down to how many households you want to target, how you want to target them, with what methodology you're going to do it. To give a structure, our average overall campaign to fill these classrooms is between $8,000 to $10,000, depending on a couple variables that people have. But it is a commitment and an investment in an overall thing, and that's why the results got to follow and the ROI has to be there. And it is. We wouldn't be doing this for 25 years and think the prospects of it are only getting better as we go, as a differentiator and a distinction for you and your firms. But that is the stuff that we work with you on together to customize how you want to do it, what that looks like for you, and what that cost structure is. Great question. We get it every time. Yeah.
Yeah. So I popped an email address in the chat. Happy to address any additional questions that you have. You can just reach out to us at advisors@fmtsolutions.com or visit our website if we can help or answer any additional specific questions. But I think that's probably a wrap for us.
Thank you, Carrie. Thank you, everybody, for taking the time. Patrick, thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you both. That was a great presentation, and thank you to everyone who attended. And just really quick, I'll slip this in just so the attendees know, Advisor Hub will be handling, uh, submitting your attendance for CE credits to the IWI and CFP board. So no need to worry about that, and that'll probably be done this week. So thank you, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Have a great week.